Hello, how many times are you married? Did you marry one time? Did you marry the same person twice? Or indeed, did you go through 3 ceremonies of marriage, just the two of you? Today we'll be looking at what the various marriages, the legal marriages are in Nigeria. We celebrate 3 different kinds of marriages in Nigeria. We celebrate the Islamic marriage, we celebrate the customary law marriage, and we celebrate the statutory marriage. Under the law, each of those marriages is valid without another marriage. You don't need to marry twice before you have a valid marriage. Once one of them is valid, that is all you need. But many of us, we marry 3 times. Most of us marry twice. Very few marry once. What do I mean by that? Many of us have the traditional marriage ceremony, and then we go ahead to have the statutory law marriage ceremony as well. Now, what is the implication of that? The implication of that is that you are married twice. In fact, judicially it has been called the double-decker marriages. Of course, not by the judiciary of Nigeria. In Islamic law marriages, the 2 of them must be Muslims. That is capacity. If one of them is not a Muslim, the Muslim Mala would not marry them. So you find out that when a couple want to get married and one of them is not a Muslim, sometimes the non-Muslim defers to his loved one and changes their religion for purposes of the marriage and sometimes for purposes of living thereafter. Some people do it just for the ceremony. But whatever it is, at the time of marriage, the 2 of them must be Muslims. That is the only way they will marry. Now, the nature of an Islamic marriage is that the husband can take another wife, provided he can look after the 2 of them equally and on the same level. I'm told that under the Quran, the law really is 1 man, 1 wife, but they allow them to marry more than one if they meet that condition. Now, with an Islamic marriage, you must have capacity. That is, the capacity that you must have is that you are a Muslim and that you are an adult. Indeed, the general law does not even allow anybody who is not an adult to get married. Now, the one that all of us like to celebrate is the customary law marriage. The customary law marriage is where the husband's family, they visit the family, the extended family of the wife. They come, they bring gifts, there's a lot of dancing, there's a lot of drumming, there's a lot of partying, and the bride price is paid. Everybody wants that. And usually it is a series of ceremonies which culminates in the payment of the bride price. Everybody does it. Everybody has that ceremony. Those who have not yet had it desire, even after they've been married under the statute, to have it. That on its own also is a valid marriage. You do not need more than that. But with that, the husband can marry more than 1 wife. As long as every wife he marries under the customary law marriage. So, if he is married under the statute, he cannot marry a 2nd wife under the customary law marriage, because then he doesn't have the capacity any longer to marry under that law. So a young man who sets out in his life to marry and decides that, you know what, there's a possibility that I may want to marry a 2nd wife sometime, is advised to just stay with a customary law marriage. Now, a lot of people, 2 days, 2 years, 2 months later, get married under the statute. The same 2 people because they want their marriage to be a monogamous marriage. Under the statute, you can only have a monogamous marriage. And I think that everybody understands that. So I will not say more about the fact that it has to be monogamous. It means then that it does not admit of a third person. A man who is married under the statute and wants to marry another woman cannot marry that other woman until he has dissolved the marriage with the first woman, or until death has parted them. Now, when a man leaves his wife, or a woman for that matter leaves her husband, and she goes and marries another husband, maybe under the customary law, without dissolving the first marriage, it is not a valid marriage. She does not have a valid marriage, or he does not have a valid marriage. So it's important to understand that we need to dissolve one marriage before we go into another. Indeed, if you are married under the customary law and you want to marry somebody else under the statutory law, you have to dissolve the customary law marriage as well. So dissolution of marriage is important before you can move on into another marriage, unless it is a customary law marriage right through. Now, what does that mean for those of us who have been married and did not dissolve our marriages, and then somebody else marries us? It is a void marriage. It's as if to say it never happened. And I dare say, I have heard that there are a lot of marriages like that currently in our system. Many people say, I don't want to divorce because my religion does not allow me, my faith does not allow me to divorce. But my question is, are you validly married at all? Because if you are not validly married, you are living in sin with the man, or you are living together just as two lovers living together. I am not judgmental. When a marriage has not yet been dissolved and another one is celebrated by the same person with a third person, that marriage is void. Is void. And if it is a statutory marriage, it means then that somebody has lied to government. I will tell you a story. A young man married his wife under customary law, and thereafter they converted their marriage into a statutory law marriage. And then after some time, he decided that he didn't want to marry her any longer, and he wanted to marry somebody else. He simply left her and got married to that somebody else. When he got to the registry and they asked him to swear to an affidavit about his capacity, he said he is single. Because he must have known that if he said he was divorced, they would have asked him for divorce papers, which he did not have. So what it means is that he lied to government under oath. He swore to a lie under oath. And then 6 months, 9 months after, that second marriage breaks up. And he says he wants to go back to his first wife. And the second wife, well, the one whose marriage is not valid, whose marriage is void, says she will make trouble for him. She is ready to make trouble for him. And indeed, if she does, there will be trouble for him. One, because he has committed bigamy. Second, because he has lied under oath. Now, I would hear some people telling me immediately that the law of Lagos State does not recognize bigamy. First of all, not everybody gets married in Lagos State. Secondly, bigamy is a federal crime. So whether Lagos State recognizes it or does not recognize it, it is a federal crime. It is a crime under the Marriage Act and not under a Lagos State law. So let us understand that before we start to defend bigamy, before we start to defend lying on oath. Lagos State does not recognize or does not accept that people will lie on oath. I live in Lagos State and I know that even though it is not in the law about bigamy. It is not in our criminal law in Lagos State. Lagos State, it is an offense in Lagos State to lie under oath. Bigamy is a federal law. So that is the story of my dear friends who got married without being divorced. We now also have those who get married, who get divorced, and then they reconcile. Very lovely stories you hear about people who reconcile after being divorced. But the important thing is that they must remarry. They cannot say, oh, it doesn't matter, he's my husband, we were husband and wife before, and now that we have divorced, but now that we are reconciled, everything just continues. No, everything does not continue. You must go back and get remarried. And get remarried, you must go back, you are divorcee, that is now your civil status. Divorcee, even though we were married together, we were married before to each other. You then take that divorce decree absolute to the registry and get married properly. The same thing, ditto, if you are a divorcee and you are marrying somebody who is either a widow or who is single, and of course if it is a widow, they must bring also the certificate of death of the previous spouse. Now, what is capacity? Because that is where a lot of people seem to get it wrong. Capacity means that you are not married legally to somebody else whilst you are getting married to this new person. Of course, not except it is by customary law marriage, and in which case you are having another marriage under customary law. But the moment you choose to marry under the statute and you are married to somebody under customary law, it has to be dissolved. There is no other way around it. I cannot rewrite the law for anybody. And anybody who tries or who tells you that it doesn't matter, they are deceiving you. The reason being this: first of all, you are not married to that person. You are just living with them. Secondly, you cannot inherit because you are not a spouse. Thirdly, because a lot of people want this certificate for immigration purposes. The moment immigration discovers that there is somebody else who is a valid spouse, they withdraw that your application, or they withdraw that their consent to your application, and you are blacklisted. So why do you want all of that for yourself? Why not get it done properly? I have an ebook on my website, and I'm going to put the link under this video, where I want you to download that ebook talking about what a valid marriage is. Why does Sisi Lawyer say my marriage may not be valid? It's important for you that your marriage is valid. If your marriage today is not valid, make attempts to go and validate your marriage. So for instance, if you are married to somebody, maybe the person was married before. Ask them, if you have not asked them before, that where is their divorce certificate? Because you may be married or be living with a man or a woman who is not validly divorced. In which case you are wasting time, you are wasting your life, you are wasting your time, you are wasting your emotions. I talk about relationships that go south. I talk about breakup. I talk about issues concerning the heart, especially when the heart is troubled because of marriage. But why would you want to trouble your own heart when even the marriage is not valid? It's important therefore to know that your marriage is valid. Find out today if you do not know. And if you have any questions, of course put them in the comments box or get in touch with me. My name is Aronke Omami. I like it when my friends call me Sisi Lawyer. And of course, you can reach me by WhatsApp +234, which is Nigeria, 706-288-2332. I am a divorce coach. I give you clarity about your issues. I give you clarity about your marriage, so that if anything happens in the future, we know that you are covered. We know that you are okay. Stay blessed. My love.